How you doing, everyone? Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Joseph Driesen. I am the interim lead for Alumni Affairs. I'm joined today by Nicole Milnzak, who is a director in the Career Center as well. We are so happy to have you here for our third of 3 Mentor Network events. Believe it or not, we have 1 month left in this program, which is wild. We really hope all your matches have been going well. If you need any help troubleshooting anything or still haven't been able to get in touch with your mentee or your mentor, please let us know. We're happy to get in touch with them and try to make some connections happen. Recently, we sent out a midpoint survey just to get your feedback on how things have been going so far. How can we improve things for the second half of the program and now essentially the last month? But one of the things that came out of some feedback we got already was a chance for people to get together and share ideas on how to connect with their mentees. So on Monday, August 1st, so that's next week, we're going to have a Zoom meeting just for mentors at 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. So that'll be on Zoom, same Zoom link as the one today. We'll send out a few reminders about that, but this is a chance for mentors to talk about best practices they've seen, things that have been successful for connecting with mentees, things that might have been not so successful, and how we can help y'all get through the last month and really round out the end of the program with your mentee. After that, we have 2 in-person meetups that we're piloting. We're hoping to expand on this next year, but on Sunday, August 7th, we're going to meet in New York at noon in East Pineham, which is up in Central Park. And then on August 13th, there'll be one in LA, and I believe we're just waiting on the location for that. But that'll also be at noon Pacific time. So we'll send out all the information about those to register if you're in the area and you want to join and come meet other mentors and mentees in either New York or LA. We'd love to have you there. Again, we're hoping to maybe expand on this next year. So keep your eye open for that. But yeah. If you take anything away from what I just said, we need your help with the survey. So before I hand it over to Nicole, just one quick reminder, just stay muted for this part of the presentation. At the end, we'll definitely open it up for some Q&A. Feel free to throw any questions you have in the chat. I'll be watching that while Nicole is presenting, and we'll try to answer things as we go, and we'll save some for the end as well. So yeah, thank you again for being here. And Nicole, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Hi, folks. I'm kind of curious if you can pop in the chat sort of where you are in your job search process and how much experience you have interviewing. If you're relatively new to interviews, or if you feel like I've taken 50 interviews or I've been interviewing or I interview other people, that would be sort of helpful. So go ahead and put in the chat sort of what brought you here, what context you're thinking about, why you want to know a little bit more about breaking down the interview process. As Joe mentioned, I am Nicole Milnzak. I am the Director of Career Education and Student Employment here in the Career Center on the Boston campus. But I am more than that, and Joe's more than his title as well. And I think that really gets to the heart of the interview process, which is, first of all, you got to know who you are and what you bring to the table. If you haven't thought through that, right? And we've done some other workshops here on building your artist toolkit and sort of navigating the beginning parts of your career. Tales from being a Berkeley alumni. It's really all been consistent about it's knowing who you are, it is knowing what skill sets you have, it's knowing what you have to offer, and that service-oriented mindset that will help you navigate the entire career building process, which is inclusive of the job search process. So I'm an educator, I'm a musician, I'm an advisor, I'm a connector of people, of resources, of things. Perhaps if I was in a different setting, I might say some other things like conductor, or I might say higher education professional or leadership development person, right? And then Joe is many things, right? He works in alumni affairs, but really a convener of people, a relationship builder, a choreographer, an actor, and that may be something that you didn't even know. And you've been getting emails from Joe, and you've been getting emails from me for weeks now. And so it's important to know that bringing forward what it is that you have to offer is a key piece of success in building your career up. All right, so I used to be a teacher, and so it's always important to kind of think back on how did we get here, where are we, and then what are we going to do? Okay, so sometimes what I hear when I'm working with people at all phases of their career, so not just new graduates, but people who are looking to make career pivots, we have to sort of think about how do we get here, right? What you need to take away from the job search process and in breaking down the interview process is it is a combination of multiple factors that go into getting you to an opportunity. It's about self-reflection, like I talked about. It's about taking personal stock of your experiences, of your skills, learning what employers are looking for, and being able to articulate that. It is about building your community. That's one of the key goals of the Mentor Network, is making connections with working professionals across disciplines, across sort of age levels, to make sure that you are building out that community, that network, because especially in the visual and performing arts and the arts and entertainment industry, this is a relationship-based business. So regardless of skill, regardless of talent, the skills that you have as a person and the relationships that you have are often the keys to getting that door open or that opportunity your way. You got to have industry knowledge. You got to know what's out there. You got to know where to look so that all of these good things that you've been reflecting on, all of these things that you've been building as you build out your relationships, can be put into practice. You got to know where to find the opportunities. And then there is always this sort of overarching, be nice. Be kind person, be reliable. These are the things that I hear from employers that we work with that they require across every single part of the industry. And I know it sounds sort of silly, but being nice, being kind, being compassionate, being service oriented, being dependable, reliable, those soft skills are important. You have to be a good human to make it in the industry most of the time. You just have to be. We can all think of that one example where we're like, well, they weren't really great. I can't believe how they got where they are. But most opportunities and most roles in the industry are filled by people who are good with others, who are kind, and who are professional. Okay, so how do we increase your chances of success, right? I am not here to say that if you follow every single one of these tips that you're going to get the job every single time. Every one of us hears no. Every one of us hears no for opportunities that we feel or really believe that we are qualified for. And that can be for a number of reasons. I'll start with saying, first of all, it's often not personal. The job search is personal. It can feel personal because it is important to you. But the hiring process is often not personal. Someone's lack of getting back to you may have absolutely nothing to do with your qualifications. And so you have to remind yourself that every employer, every person out there is sort of the main character in their own show. So they may have a whole lot of other things going on that have nothing to do with you. It could be that the budget was cut, so they're not hiring for the position anymore. It could be that they're out on some sort of leave and they stopped in the middle of a hiring process. It could be that they always knew who they were going to hire and they just ran a search because they feel like they had to check off some sort of boxes. Those are the things out of your control. And I can't keep anyone from hiring their cousin's brother's friend or whatever that might be. But what we can take control of is what we're going to talk about today. The things that you can do as someone who's looking for the next opportunity, as someone who's going into an interview, to give yourself the best chance, put your best foot forward. So what we're going to talk about today, empathy and putting yourself in a hiring manager's shoes, decoding a job description, because we often use a lot of jargon or words that may not actually be describing what you would be doing in the job on the day-to-day, or the job description is so vague that you have no idea what they're looking for. How you can prep before the interview, some common questions and approaches to how to answer those questions that you can ask any employer, and then how do you follow up in an interview process, right? And just remember that all of this is sort of assuming that you have gotten to the point where you've got an interview. You can always talk to us in Alumni Affairs or in the Career Center on the strategy on making sure that your materials are good, that you know where to look, and that you have submitted a successful application that has yielded an interview. Okay, we don't have time to go through all of that today, but we can help you with that. And that is services that we offer to alumni and students for life. Okay, cool. All right. So maximizing your application requires you to minimize the risk that the employer is taking on you. So it is not only about distinguishing yourself above all of the other candidates in the pool, or at least most of the candidates in the pool, but it is also them making a risk assessment. And by risk, I mean, not like, is this person going to be volatile in the workplace, but it's how much time, how much energy am I going to have to invest in this person? Are they going to be successful? Are they going to get in and it's going to be a nightmare, right? This is the risk that anybody is taking when offering employment. And so it's really important to know that a hiring manager has needs that they need filled for whatever reason. And you have to understand that when they post a job, it's not just because it's a nice to have, it's a must have for them and their organization. And most people are posting jobs for one of two reasons. It's either somebody left or is about to leave, and now there's going to be a hole in their workforce that needs to get filled, which is going to be a damper on their workflow, or their business is thriving in such a way or growing in such a way that they need more bodies. Right. And so you have to know that their motivation is to get someone in, who can hit the ground running and that can make their lives easier. That's not to say that they shouldn't be investing time in your training or in your professional development. Any good manager or supervisor should have that as a consideration and as a desire. But at the end of the day, they got a job that needs to get done. So either it's not getting done or they've had to spread it out over all of their other employees and everyone is frustrated, and they need to minimize that period of time where that challenge exists across their organization, or they risk losing all their employees, not just one. Okay. So that's really, really important. All of the things that I'll tell you today is about minimizing your risk. The employer's risk on you. So it is really about putting yourself in their shoes. What do they want from this person? What do you bring to the table? And how can you make sure that you talk about them in a way that shows that you understand what they need and that you can be that person to fill that need? The job description, if it's well written, should communicate the expectations and guidelines for the role that you're applying for. But if you've ever applied for a job that has the words fast-paced environment, that's sort of code for it's kind of really busy around here, or there may be shifting priorities, or there may be a lot of change happening, or it may be that you're going to have a lot of things to do. And so you have to learn how those terms translate, and you have to be able to articulate on your application in your interview that you understand that you're good with that, and that you can hit the ground running. Okay, so we'll talk about decoding a job description here in a second. If there's not a job description, has anyone here, if you give me like a little signal or anything, applied for a job that either has almost no job description, it was from a referral, or the job description is like one line long? Must love the music industry. We're looking for passionate individuals who want to be part of a great collaborative team. You're like, but like, what? Right, I'm getting a lot of yes, I've seen those things. That can be incredibly challenging to prepare for an interview when you're like, I'm not exactly sure what the job is. And an interview can be everything from that initial phone screening to a more in-depth interview to some sort of hiring exercise to meeting the team or making a presentation. But it's really important that you don't just say, well, there's no job description, so I'm just going to give it, I'm just going to submit my application, my resume, and hope for the best. You can do things to help you figure out what they might need. We have Google. It's the world's most powerful database, for better or worse. Looking at where that company or organization is in an industry. Have they put out a press release? Are they in any sort of write-ups about what they're doing? Have they announced new projects? It may not even be on their website, but it might be on the internet. If it says marketing job, they don't have a long job description, go find other marketing jobs and start to look for consistent consistent things that most marketing jobs are going to ask you to do. Look up people who work there and see what they do. See if there's an alumni who works there and you can ask them what it's like to work at that company. There are ways that you can start to use your educated guess and the research tools available to you to take your best guess and put that forth in your application materials and in your interview. And when in doubt, ask. So if you're in an interview process, you also want to know what you don't know about the job. So preparing a list of questions that are things that you want to know about a job is also really important as part of this process. All right, so here are sort of the components of a job description. You know, decoding a job description. Has anyone on the other side had a job description posted that is like 3 pages long? And you've applied for a job that is incredibly detailed in the job description and it looks like it's like 10 people's jobs? And yeah. Yeah, maybe. Or you're like, I'm a little unsure what the priorities are. I'm not quite sure what they're asking for here, or there's no way I'm going to meet all of these qualifications. You don't have to. If you meet half, truly, if you meet about half, I say go for it. You got to think about what are the non-starters. If it says you're going to be doing Pro Tools sessions and you don't know how to use Pro Tools, that's kind of a hard stop. But if you feel like you can do a lot and you know you can learn things or you have similar experience, go for it. The job title can give a lot away. Sometimes job titles are incredibly elusive, right? Director of Career Education and Student Employment can be incredibly descriptive in some people's minds, and other people might be like, I have no idea, what does that mean, Nicole? What do you do in the Career Center? Right? So it really can give you a little bit of a clue, but not all the clue. If there's no about the employer section, look at their website and see how they describe themselves. That's going to set the tone for the culture of the entire organization. Then there are things like responsibilities, qualifications, desired skills, and they usually are in that order. They're also usually in the order of importance for the employer. A well-written job description should have the most important responsibilities first, and then the nice to haves later, and then the sort of soft skills later. Where I see a lot of folks fall down is they focus too much on one of those areas, like the nice to haves. You've got to use your skills to read that job in a way to say, what are the must-haves for this job? And do I have that experience? And how do I talk about the must-haves? So if it's 70% customer service and 30% creative, and all you do in your interview is talk about the creative, I'm thinking this person doesn't really understand what they're getting into and they're not going to like it. So I can't extend an offer to someone that I think I'm going to lose in 6 months. So when you interview, you want to make sure that you express and talk about the things that you bring to the table that hit the must-haves on the head. Application instructions. You would be shocked, and maybe you wouldn't be if you've ever hired anybody, how many folks neglect to follow the application instructions. And that can be everything from they didn't attach a cover letter, but a cover letter was requested, to you need to label your file in this format, or you need to submit an MP3 and you sent a wave. If I'm reading those applications or I'm processing those applications and someone who supposedly wants to work for me didn't have the attention to detail to attach a cover letter, I disqualify them. At this point in my career, I've hired a lot of people at all levels, and I have made the mistake of saying, "Oh, can you submit a cover letter?" or "Oh, can you resubmit this in an MP3 format?" If they're not willing to meet you at least halfway, then it's probably not a good hire, and they might not be able to prove it when it comes time to actually executing in the job. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, and I am like a bleeding heart and want to try to like pull things, but I've learned the hard way in my experiences that I can't want something for someone that they don't want for themselves, which is, if you want the job, you got to follow instructions. I want you to be able to follow instructions if I'm hiring you. Okay, so that is a really key thing. And we hear that feedback from a lot of people. And I'm not just talking about students. I've seen it at all levels of all sort of searches that I've been a part of. sort of neglect to follow instructions. So just be careful and make sure that you are that person that follows the directions. Okay, so types of interviews, one-on-one interviews. How many of you have been in a one-on-one interview with somebody before? One-on-one? Perfect. What about a group interview? That is a journey and a fun experience, or it can be. Group interviews. Okay. Phone interviews, a phone screening. We often call those phone screenings. What about Zoom? Who's Zoom interviewed now? I'd say a lot. If you're applying for a job at this point, most interviews are going to be done over Zoom, at least to start, if not over the phone. The video void. This is my new favorite trend, which is you sit on a computer and a question pops up on a screen and a recording is taken of you answering the question, but there's no human. Anyone done one of those? It's wild. It's like not that it's not that fun, and it feels like not a very human experience. But a lot of companies, especially mid to large corporations, are using that as their first method of screening. A hiring exercise. So that could be respond to this email. Here's a spreadsheet and split sheets. Can you do the royalties on this spreadsheet? Or can you do a presentation? Anyone done an exercise for hiring? Cool. Yeah, and maybe even like, here's a score. I need you to craft the parts. Kind of thing. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can interview. If you are someone who is doing interviews, I suggest you kind of do a combination of these, right? I will also say, with the market as hot as it is right now, it is very much an employee's market. The days of 5 rounds of interviews spread out over 6 to 8 weeks are moving away right now. Talent is in the driver's seat. There's a lot that the wave of employees who are looking for jobs have in regards to negotiation. People are looking for flexibility. People are looking for increased wages, especially due to the economy. Typically, folks are not staying in jobs as long as they have historically. So people are moving and grooving around the industry. We kind of are dealing with this sort of great resignation and or a great reshuffling. So people are moving around. And so I would, if you are doing hiring, finding a way to do this on a quick timeline is going to yield you candidates and have you not lose offers. People are getting lots of offers and then they're getting ghosted by candidates because they found something else. So if you are hiring for someone, do a combination of these. It's also okay to ask what to expect in the interview. It may make you nervous to inquire about details about an interview, but I would encourage you, if you get a calendar invite for an interview and it's not clear that this is a one-on-one versus a group, I would just inquire. It shows that you care. It shows that you're trying to prepare, that you want to put your best foot forward. And there's nothing worse than walking into what you think will be a one-on-one and now you're in a group of 10 people. Right? There's also some mental preparation that you need to have to get into that group. And if you can find out who's going to be in that room with you, then you can do your research. You can understand what backgrounds they have, what operations and functions they serve, that organization or company. And it helps you be a little bit more prepared to navigate that dynamic and a little bit more prepared and a little bit more strategic about how you answer so that you are making inroads with the people in the room. Okay, so it's okay to ask. I also like to take a look at calendar invites. If everyone's on it, Google everybody on that calendar invite. Find out what they do, find out who they are. Okay. So the preparation for the interview. All right, this is where it really all matters. You should be preparing at least to some extent like this as you submit your applications, knowing what the company is about, knowing why you want to work there, knowing why you're making this decision at this point in your career. These are key elements, not only for your interview, which you're going to have to articulate verbally, but also through your application. Your resume needs to be tailored in a way that it aligns with what they're looking for. Your cover letter should be written in a way that answers those questions. Why this position? Why now? What do you bring to the table? What are your qualifications? Right? So some of that pre-work that you did to put together a strong application should be useful to you if you get to the interview process. It's just a different mode of communication. Research is incredibly important. Okay, you have to know what's going on in the field. You got to know, get a sense of who's working there. And we have so many tools available to us that this information is much more readily available than it used to be. We have things like LinkedIn. We have things like the internet. You can search articles. We've got great newsletters out there that are music industry focused. So not just their website, because anybody can put anything on their website and they can make themselves look good. A good website should make them look good. But you also want to see, like, what's their reputation in the industry? What do their social media accounts look like? Who's working there on LinkedIn? All of this can give you a bigger picture of what you're potentially getting into. It helps you make a wise decision about where you might want to work. And it prepares you to answer your questions with a more sort of holistic viewpoint. Okay. You can prepare scenarios ahead of time, right? That is important. Has anyone ever been in an interview where you're asked a question and then you blank? You don't know what to answer? Yeah, of course. And I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you, because when my brain, if I've not prepared ahead of time and someone says, can you describe a time where blank? My brain is now scanning from like the day I was born until like 5 minutes before the interview. And it's like trying to find an example of all these wonderful life and professional experiences that I've had. And it can't pick on one. It's kind of like me, like looking at Netflix. I like look at that screen for like an hour and I just scroll through and I pick nothing. And by the end of the night, I'm like, well, never mind. And I don't watch anything, right? You can't be stuck in that position when you're interviewing. So when you have embodied what the job description wants, pick maybe your top 3 to 5 anecdotes or experiences that you can illuminate why you'd be a good person for the job, and stick to those. Eliminate the rest of the noise from your brain so you can focus and you can answer the question. So you pick those ahead of time and be able to talk through them. Practice out loud, right? We would very rarely, unless we're cramming, and I'm thinking of a moment in my clarinet career where I felt like I had so much music to learn and I didn't have enough time to practice, that I like stared at my music and just like hoped it seeped into my brain. But rarely would we take on a performance or a gig without ever thinking about the music or without ever preparing something. Even if it's not the same chart, we practice over and over so that when we get there, we get the chart, the right thing comes out. It's the same thing with interviewing. If you've never answered the question or you haven't answered recently, what do you want to do in 5 years? Or tell me a little bit about yourself. If you haven't said that out loud in some time, or you've never practiced that, you need to practice it. Because the weirdest stuff can come out when the nerves are on and the pressure is on and you care. It can be like, why did I say that? That is not relevant to this. So you do want to be able to practice. Why do you want this job? Why at this point in your career? And tell me a little bit about yourself. And it's important to get those out of your mouth. Doing a mock interview can be a really helpful tool to just sort of work this out. I'm not saying you should have a script. People can tell, people who are rehearsed. This is not, I'm a classical musician, so I can say this, I suppose. This is not me practicing a Beethoven excerpt to try to get it to sound exactly the same every single time I do it. This is not that kind of environment. This is more improv. You've got a chart, you think through the changes, you do practice over the changes, but every time it's a little bit different. It has to have sort of a bit of a free element to it with some structure. Okay, so practicing, not rehearsing, but just sort of getting through some answers so that every time you talk, it's coming out in a way that makes sense for the job is really, really critical. Okay. Okay, common interview questions, right? So there's no way to know what someone's going to ask. but I will tell you 98% of interviews ask like the same 5 questions. Has anyone ever been asked a question like, tell me a little bit about yourself, or can you introduce yourself to the group? I mean, that's really what the heart is of all of this, is tell me a little bit about yourself. Resist the urge to go through your entire biography. Be strategic about what you say and show that you're in alignment with the job. That's important. Not too long, quick, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning. For this presentation, it's educator, advisor, musician, and connector. If I'm applying for a guest conducting gig, I'm going to talk about educator, conductor, musician, rehearsal technician. I might talk about something different. I might frame myself a little bit differently. That makes more sense for me going for a conducting gig than a higher education administration gig. Okay, so think about how you answer, tell me about yourself in a way that aligns you with the job and their values. Okay. The other questions that you have to be prepared to answer are, why do you want this job? Why do you want to work for this company specifically? Right. One of our key questions that we ask when we're talking with people applying for professional staff jobs at Berkeley is, why Berkeley? Berkeley is a unique place. It is a magnetic place with a very, very specialized student population and alumni population. It is critical that somebody who may be applying to jobs at other colleges can talk about what Berkeley has to offer and why it's important to them. If they don't have a passion for creative students, for the arts, it's not going to be a good fit for them. And so it's really important, like, why Berkeley? Why now in your career? Why this job? So those are really, really important. And most of the time, that's pretty much all they ask. And that's really all they want to know. Right? Every other question is sort of a variation on that. So there's 2 types of questions that are typically asked. Okay, there's sort of these traditional that are trying to just get at information, right? What skills do you have? Tell me what you can do. Why did you apply for the job? Why us? Where do you see yourself? All those sort of basics. Those are sort of the basic informational questions. You can still bring these to life through a story. The best way to answer these is to talk about your experience, because then it gives it some validity. Otherwise, you're just sort of pontificating. It's important to say, here's what I can do in my work as a blank. I've done this, this, this. I'm looking for X, Y, Z. The other questions that have become much more popular is the sort of ones that are looking to get at, how do you act and who are you as a colleague and a professional? And we've seen a trend shift, even in my time at Berkeley, towards the soft skills, the interpersonal skills, because we can teach you to use a software platform. We can teach you to learn how to use a new piece of technology, but we can't teach you how to be a kind person and a collaborative colleague. So it's really important that you're able to discuss yourself as a human and as a colleague. It's very, very important. So how do you do it? What's your approach? Describe a time. Tell me about a time. What is your role on a team? How do you act? This is important because it's both. You have to have the hard skills. You got to be able to do the job or learn quickly. And then you also have to have those soft skills. You've got to be a person who knows when to answer questions and ask questions, knows how to be kind and compassionate, knows how to be collaborative and independent. We're kind of looking for that person who is able to navigate the dynamics of working with other people. Okay, so some common questions and how to answer them, right? We talked about highlighting a few experiences that are key to your success. What I would say is, think these things through as if they were a story. You got to give me a little context as to why you're giving me this example. That's the situation of the STAR method. Describe the context a little bit. So here's the example. Here's what I was doing at this time. Here's sort of the situation. Then the task. Here's what we were tasked with doing. or this is what I needed to accomplish. Then what did you do? The action. And this is where people get really messy. If the action is pointed at other people, or you talk about what other people did in a situation, to me, that's not a great answer. It's all about what you had to do, because they're not interviewing your coworkers, they're interviewing you. So this is what I did to address this goal. Here was my role on the team. Here's how I navigated or thought through the problem. And then what's the results? And then what happened? Right? You don't want to say, well, everybody was awful and then it ended badly. That's not the right situation to talk about. You want something that you can explain how you work and why you work with some results that were positive. Okay. Even for questions that can feel negative. So one of the things that I talk about with students in particular a lot is, how do I answer the question about describe a time when you had a conflict with a coworker, or describe a time where you had a challenge or a project didn't go the way that you wanted it to. You can still find a way to spin that in a positive way and not point fingers at other people and their role in it. It's about owning your responsibility, knowing your piece of the problem and the puzzle, and getting to a good end. If you're not to a sort of satisfactory result, I would say that's probably not the best story to pick. Certainly not one that you want to highlight in your interview. Okay. Projects, jobs, volunteering, all kinds of different experiences can help describe how you navigate some of this. Okay. Cool. So here are some sample questions, and I'm going to share these slides with Joe, and Joe is going to send out the recording and the slides to all of this. But it is also important to ask questions at the end of an interview. It's really, really critical that you have something that you care about knowing more about within the company. If somebody is in an interview with me and I think they're really great, and I say, okay, what questions do you have for me? Or what questions do you have for the team? Or tell me, what do you want to know about the role or working at Berkeley? And if they say, I think I'm good, we're done. It's over. I can't work with someone who doesn't want to know more. There's no way within even an extensive interview process, you know everything. So it's really important to have some questions that are ready to go. One of my favorite is in previous employees that were in this role, what made them successful? It shows that you care about being good. On the converse, what were some of the challenges in this role that I should anticipate? Because remember, at the end of the day, you are also making a decision about your life and about your career, and you need to ask questions so that you can suss out if this is a toxic work environment or this is a work environment that you can be happy in and thrive in. And so you have to ask questions. If they don't describe their culture, you need to ask that question. How would you describe the work environment here? How would you describe your management style? How would you say, what would your coworkers say about their experience here? Or ask them, what's your favorite thing about working here? What are some challenges you anticipate? What do you anticipate that I would have a challenge with? Like, these are important, and they also show that you care about being a great employee. And that is really, really important. Okay. So again, I will give these to you. You should write all of these down. It's okay to have them in a notebook at the interview. It's okay to ask the questions. There's no bonus points for memorization of the questions you had prepared. It just shows that you care, that you're thorough, and that you're thoughtful. You should also always ask at the appropriate time, what are the next steps in the hiring process? Because there's nothing worse than being the first person they interviewed and they've got 50 more to go and you don't hear from them for 3 weeks. And that whole time you're wondering, was it me? Just ask, what are the next steps in the hiring process? What can I expect? Okay. The last thing I'll say, I get questions a lot. Should I send a thank you? Do I need to follow up? Absolutely. Send a thank you. It's not going to hurt you, but it often can help you. Gratitude, reflecting on your time with that person, appreciating that they took the time to spend with you is a key. I often do not wait. I often wait 48 hours if I haven't heard back from a potential candidate to see if they're going to send me a thank you note after. Send a thank you note to everybody who was on the call. If their emails are on there, great. Get their names. highlight an experience or something that happened in the interview that you really liked. It can go a long way. It shows that you're thoughtful of things outside of yourself. And I would like to work with someone who is compassionate to others, that cares and is appreciative of people's time and respectful, right? These are the ways that you can show that you really are a good coworker, that you're someone who cares, and it can go a really, really long way. Okay. Make sure you send things within 24 hours, ideally, and you can follow up. It's okay to say, I'm really still excited about the position. Is there anything additional that you need from me? A really great thing to say is, please let me know if anything we discuss requires further discussion or you'd like clarification on. I'm happy to provide it. Gives them a chance to say, hey, talk to me a little bit more about this. It keeps the door open and gives you a better chance of success. And the last thing I'll say is, here's the sample. Here's the sample follow-up email. You can copy and paste this. You can customize it to your own needs. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, but this is a great way to start a quick email, nothing long, gratitude, and you're good to go. It was great learning about this. It was great finding another person who's from Buffalo. Go Bills, right? Like, there's lots of different ways that you can make connections and show that you're invested in being a part of the team, that you want to be a part of the community, and that you have something to offer. Okay, so this is where you can find me and find us. This is very high level. There's a lot of detail that goes into every step of this process, but please know that you as alumni have access to all of the career advisors for life. You can make appointments with the Career Center. It may be that you are a new graduate and you're looking for that first opportunity, or to take from an internship to a full-time job or a part-time job. You might be ready to make a career pivot. We've worked with folks that graduated 25 or 30 years ago and have been on the road abroad for 30 years, and now they're looking to shift into education or teaching or administration. We can work with anybody at any point in their career we want to. And this is a really great way to sort of polish your skills, right? We would never send all of our music out there in the world and put it out there without having anyone listen to it before, a mentor or a coach or a teacher. The same thing applies to building your career. You don't need to do it alone. We're here to help you kind of navigate, think through things, answer questions, and we hope you utilize our services. So we've got about 12 to 15 minutes here. If anyone has any sort of pressing questions right now, it's a lot of information. I feel like I've been talking forever, which you probably feel too. So let's open it up. Any points that make sense? Anything that you want clarification on?
Nicole, I just want to say thank you for, before any other questions come in, just really thank you for walking us through this. I know it's a lot of information and can be overwhelming for sure, but I think being able to go back and rewatch certain parts of this and go through the slides, you can really dig in and get at some of those finer points.
Yeah.
I do see a question here from Colin. What would you say about applying for positions that you aren't fully qualified for? Like, if the employer is looking for someone with more years in the industry than you have, or maybe a skill or two that they list that you don't have.
Okay, that's a great question. So Colin, if you can either unmute and let me know, where are you in your career? Are you like a recent grad? Or are you like, how many years experience would you say you have?
Yeah, so I'm a recent grad. I would say in the video game industry, which is what I'm trying to get into, I'd have like maybe a year, like not even a year of experience making games.
Okay.
A lot of positions will require like at least 3 years, or require like experience at a AAA company, a big game company.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So it's sort of a two-part answer. One is, don't undervalue your enthusiasm to learn, your ability to learn quickly, and the fact that you have a great education, right? Remember, not everybody gets into the industry with a degree in the arts and entertainment industry. And that's not to say that there's one right way to do it. There's not one right way, but you also have some extra special in-depth education and knowledge and skills that maybe someone who didn't go to college and has been working their way through the industry doesn't have. So you want to highlight what you do have, not what you don't have. If they say 3 years of experience and you studied and you did a 4-year degree and you've got 1 year, I say go for it if they're asking for 3. If they're asking for 10, it's probably at a level that you're not ready for as well. It's probably not an entry level type position. But I would say if you think that you hit about 50% of the qualifications, you can enthusiasm and displaying that you are a great learner and savvy with the technology or the skills that are required can go a long way. You can also talk about projects that you've done. It doesn't have to only be paid work experience. Internships, projects, collaborations, side hustles, all of those things kind of count towards your years in the bank. Okay. And then I think the other sort of was like, they require experience at a AAA company. Unless they say applicants will not be considered unless they have done X, go for it.
Got it. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Mhm. Yeah, you never know. Let them, I mean, rejection never feels good, but let them reject you. Don't reject yourself before you even apply. Especially if you're a new grad, often we self-select out of an opportunity that we might actually be quite qualified for. I also don't think an employer should expect you to check off 100% of the boxes. That would mostly mean that that's probably either a lateral move or a demotion. Anybody looking for that next step in their career is going to have something to learn from the next job. And employers should basically understand that. So it's about picking the key things that make the most sense and that you highlight what you bring. What else? Anything else? Anyone want to unmute? Who's currently actively looking for a job? Amazing. This is great. This is great. Okay, so if you're actively applying and interviewing, make sure that you're clear with everybody in your networks what you're looking for. People can't read minds. I think I said earlier, everyone's the main character in their own play, right? And so what feels like is obvious to the world in your lane may not be in someone else's lane. So you want to be really clear about what you're looking for. If I asked you all right now, we've got several active job seekers in here. If you could put one sentence in the chat about what you're looking for, you never know who's in the room. I'm just kind of curious, like what you would say, what type of work, or where are you? Okay. It doesn't mean that anyone in here can give you a job, but it's important to be able to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm interested in.
I'll give a shameless plug as well. Someone asked if we will be sharing this webinar afterwards. We absolutely will. And we'll also be sharing the ones from before, including the one about building your artist toolkit, which, you know, Mason from the Career Center talked a lot about how to talk about yourself and how to really get at your, not necessarily your elevator pitch, but really how to define who you are and what you're looking to do. So I feel like that webinar really complements a lot of what Nicole's saying here, of like almost like knowing your story and knowing how to talk about yourself and really present yourself in different situations. So we'll be sharing that one too. So keep your eye on your email. It's probably coming next week, I would say.
Perfect. Anything else? Any other burning questions? All right. Well, I will extend my gratitude to all of you. You could have chosen to be anywhere else in this hour. And we're all artists and musicians and busy professionals, and choosing to spend an hour with us is no small feat. It's very much appreciated. I hope that everybody learned something or that it reinforced things that you already know. Sometimes it's great to just hear, I'm on the right path. I'm thinking the right way. It's very validating and can be really helpful as you navigate the next step. So certainly hit me up if you need anything. We are here to support you. We're excited about your job search. And let's make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. So excited. Thank you, John, for wanting to share this out with your mentee. Please tell them that the Career Center it's not a scary thing. It's a helpful thing. We're pretty kind over here, and all we want to do is make sure that our students and alumni are successful. So I think without that, we'll peace out. We'll be ready to go.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you everyone again for being here. We appreciate it so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.